Rev up your engines!
It turns out that Tesla earns 8 times as much profit per car than Toyota does. The business world guys are like, oh wow, let's follow Tesla's model. He's making 8 times as much profit per car than Toyota's. You know what I say? It's a stupid idea. Because, yeah, he makes 8 times more per car than Toyota. The Toyota cars are much more quality built, and they don't cost as much. Well, hey, you can sucker people into buying them. Yeah, you're going to make more profit. It doesn't mean that that's a good business model to follow or a good philosophical model. What? Just keep ripping people off as much as you can to make as much profit as possible. Toyota's been making cars for an awful long time. They make good cars. Generally, they can last quite some time. But, of course, the business boys, they're all saying, oh, he's doing a great thing. He's making 8 times more profit per car than Toyota. This whole thing in our society about profit margin has gotten absurd. You make more profit by charging people more and making things cheaper, which is exactly what Tesla's doing. A lot of his newer cars don't have the top of the end batteries because they cost too much. They're using cheaper batteries that have less energy density, but they're cheaper to make. And is he lowering the prices of the car? No, he keeps raising the prices of the car. If anybody thinks this is a good business model to follow, they're living in la-la land. We're making more profit. Well, guess what? People are going to stop buying the things if you start charging too much money for things that aren't that quality. In the short run, you can fool people. But in the long run, people generally sit back and they look, how much money am I spending? What am I getting? I'm not going to buy that. Always follow the money. Don't think, oh, look, he's doing a better job. He makes 8 times as much money per car as Toyota. To me, that means he's doing a lousy job for the consumer. He's just charging them more money and making more profit. Of course, like I said, the business boys think it's great. Let's all do this because they want to make as much money as they can. They're greedy, but for an overall society benefit, it's a stupid idea to always maximize profit. It's just stupid. And everybody thinks, oh, yeah, what a great business model. No, it's a terrible business model, people. Don't follow it. The Toyota's conservative. It took them a long time to build good cars. They keep improving them. Those companies should be rewarded, not a greedy guy who charges as much as he can for poor quality. Who knows where our society's headed, but to me, it needs to start doing a 180 and going in the opposite direction. Michael Maldonado says, Scotty, what do you think of the Mazda CX line of SUVs? I actually like them. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, I didn't like the Mazdas. They made okay engines, but the transmissions are garbage. Then they had a relationship with Ford, where the Mazdas got kind of even crappier. They got a lot of crappy Ford motorcraft parts that didn't last. But Toyota now owns a certain percentage of Mazda, and they're much better made than they were. And I've been testing out these CXs. And for the money that you pay, they seem to be excellent vehicles. I'm a Toyota fan myself, but the people that brought me later model ones, and I tested them out, they were excellent cars. Kind of like Toyotas. Change the oil and filter regularly, maintain it. They can last a really long time. I would stay away from the older ones when they had a relationship with Ford because the engines had a tendency of blowing up and the transmissions were kind of crappy. Now, the newer ones, they're excellent. If you're talking about buying a brand new one, hey, you don't mind the price. They're well-built vehicles. Billy says, anybody knows what spray he uses on the plastic on headlights? It's called Plexus. Plexus. They don't pay me anything. They don't give me free stuff. I gotta buy it myself too, and it's expensive. You go online, it's like 20 bucks for a bottle, but it lasts for a long time. It was invented for those canopies on fighter jets to keep them clear and clean. I use it on my motorcycles. I use it on headlights. What it is it's a fine polish for plastic that also then protects against UV light. The ultraviolet light is what destroys them and makes them cloudy. Then they crack because the plasticizers dry out and then they get hard and then they crack and then they look like crap and you got to buy new headlight assemblies. Any kind of plastic. I use my motorcycle fairings. You can use my snowmobiles. Any kind of plastic. It's amazing stuff. I mean, I've got cans. I think there's one there. There it is. Right there. See? I'm blocking it. But it's right there. That's a can of Plexus. It still works fine because it's an aerosol. It's sealed in a can. That's the advantage of aerosols versus pumps. The pumps, a lot of times the material inside will go bad. The aerosols, the can's sealed. It lasts longer. If you got a choice between an aerosol can and a pump, get the aerosol can. It'll last longer. Zach Wyman says, what makes my 15 Chevy Malibu crank for a long time before it starts? Only after it sits for an hour. But any longer or shorter, it starts no problem. Okay, so ice cold in the morning. If it sits for more than an hour, it starts fine. Your car's flooding out. When a car is cold, the engine needs extra fuel. So when a cold car, you crank it and it starts, it gets a little extra fuel, fine. But you got a hot engine and it's getting too much fuel. You try to restart it, it's flooded out and it's hard to start because you don't need extra fuel on a hot engine, just on a cold engine. Some reason your car is flooding out. The first thing I advise you to do, ATS, automatic test solutions. I got a bottle of it up there. It's a fuel cleaner. Put in your gas tank driving around. If your fuel injectors are messed up and they're dirty, and instead of making a nice spray, they dribble, the dribble floods them out. I put that in cars, they stop doing it. Now, if that doesn't fix it, you got some kind of a problem in your car that it's flooding it out. And when it sits, it's called a hot soak, less than an hour, you got too much fuel in the car. If his cleaner doesn't work, have them all tested. Maybe one injector's bad and you got to replace. Maybe your fuel pressure regulator is leaking. Then when it's hot, it's too much fuel. Now, the reason if it sits for more than an hour is, if it is flooded out, it sits for an hour, guess what happens? The heat of the engine evaporates the fuel that's inside it. Then it's not flooded out anymore because it evaporated out. And that's why if it sits more than an hour, it'll start, or if it's ice cold, it'll start. But when it's warm, it won't because it's flooding out. You got to figure out why it's flooding out. Driven Gears Automotive says, Scotty, I got an 07 Chevy Aveo. Me and her dad are going to swap out the 1.6 liter to 1.4 turbo. Do you have advice before we do it? Yes, don't. That's my advice. Those Chevy Aveos are rolling piles of junk, right? Now, if you want a toy and it's a little faster and you don't care, go right ahead. An 07 Chevy Aveo is worth nothing. You want to soup it up and play around with it, go right ahead. Just realize, you put a smaller engine with a turbo, it's going to blow up faster. But if you want to have a little fun and it's a toy and you got the thing cheap enough, why not? Now, as standard transportation, don't do it for that because it won't last as long. You're swapping it out for a 1.4 liter turbo. Where the heck did that come from? Probably a junkyard. Who knows if that's any good? They wear out fast. But if you want a toy and you want to play around with it, you can get the stuff cheap enough. Go right ahead. Just don't do it for regular transportation. That's why I don't like all the modern things of tiny engines with turbos, because in the long run, they wear out faster. And if it's your transportation, you're going to be peed when the engine or the turbo are both blow and it costs a fortune to fix. You'd have wished you'd have something a little bit slower that would last longer. Clay Cow says, should I put more money into a V6 03 Honda Accord with 200K? It needs 2K of maintenance, but the tranny and engine are still solid. They're good cars today, engine and tranny solid, but here's the thing, $2,000's a lot of money. Go someplace else. I just had a guy bring me a car that he spent almost $2,000 on, and they didn't even fix his problem. Guys are always selling crap to people. $2,000 to me is a lot of money to put into a car. You might find that they're just ripping you off price-wise. Like, well, you need brakes, that's going to be $900. You can get rotors and brake pads for less than $100 and learn how to do it yourself watching my videos. Don't get ripped off. A lot of people pay way too much. I've had people even bring me like Toyota Corolla, and they'll say, well, you know, in the last 5 years, I've spent a couple grand maintaining this thing. And I'm like, somebody's ripping you off, because those things generally don't need anywhere near that kind of work. It's one of the reasons I'm here. I make videos to show people how to do stuff themselves. There's so many crooks out there that are going to rip you off. You're better learning how to do it yourself, and a lot of stuff. Brake jobs, changing radiators, water pumps. It's easy on most cars that anybody can do themselves. It's not that hard to do. Realize most mechanic shops charge anywhere between $120 and $200 an hour labor. Why not learn how to do it yourself? The easy stuff. Because it's not that hard to do. Most of the stuff, if you maintain a car, and buy the right car like a Toyota or Honda, is easy to maintain and relatively easy to fix as long as you don't wreck the engine or tranny. And yours is still good, so hey, look into that. Or if you don't want to fix anything yourself, try to find a guy like me in your area that does it. Well, I was watching an interesting YouTube video yesterday. It was about a handheld machine that used lasers to remove rust and corrosion on tools, on anything. They were going to rusted cars, on the fender, they were getting rid of the rust. They were going on rusted tools. So I thought, what a phenomenal idea. They had a little pair of lockjaw vice grip pliers, all rusted, and they went over it with the laser handheld machine, took all the rust off, you know, it looked great. Well, there's only one problem. I go to Amazon, and the cheapest one I could find was $11,299, and the more expensive one was $29,000. I guess old Scotty isn't going to be buying a laser rust removing tool anytime soon. Sometimes the solution is too expensive for the fix. You can buy a brand new pair of vice grip pliers for $20, right? The cheapest $12,000 machine to clean it up? I don't think so. Not anytime soon. That's a problem with a lot of technology. They come up with things that, oh, look, it's phenomenal. Then you find out what the price is. Maybe not so phenomenal. I've seen some very interesting stuff, and I say, well, what does it cost? I'm like, whoa, who's going to buy that thing? Now they just think they can build anything, and people will buy it. Case of Tesla. People are buying it. Quality's lousy. They keep buying it. He'll keep making them. He'll keep raising the prices. So, looks like Scotty is going to be buying a laser rust removal tool anytime soon. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.